Homeowners of Reddit, what's the biggest thing you wish you would have known before you bought and moved into your first house? Pay attention to the grade of the yard. Where is the water going to flow or pool if it rains? Water issues are the worst. Water can be so expensive and destructive before you even know that there's a problem. And if water wants to go somewhere, like into your basement, or eroding your foundation, it is so shockingly hard to get it to do anything else. You can fix the problem and it's going to happen again and again because the water wants to go there. How much everything costs. Just general maintenance. Bills and mortgage are known and predictable, but then there's broken boilers, washing machines, fridges, paint, random tools, and all sorts of other stuff that just adds up really quickly. The cost of furnishing a house can get out of control. Close the doors to the rooms you don't use. Get stuff used and in phases. You don't need to fill every room upon move-in. Vintage furniture is often of a much higher quality than new. Curtains, drapes, blinds are expensive. Do not engage a building inspector recommended by the agent trying to sell the house. Go with someone independent that will be honest about all the problems. Attend the property inspection and physically view everything the inspector brings up as an issue. Biggest life tip I can hand over: flush the goddamn toilet if you're viewing a property. Also, run the shower. We bought our house, moved in. First time I used the shower we realized there was a bad bit of piping under the shower and water was coming out into the space between floors. It was above our kitchen and we just paid to have the ceiling plastered. Had to rip down the plaster to fix the shower. The bank will approve you for way more than you will be able to comfortably afford. For example, using made up numbers, we were approved for $250K. We knew realistically that we could not afford the monthly mortgage on a house that expensive without eating ramen for 30 years. So we bought a house at $180K and living very comfortably. As a 24-year-old newlyweds, the thought of having a nice $250K house sounds nice, but you have to think realistically. What fun is it to have all your money go to your mortgage and you can't enjoy a night out or pay for your car to be fixed? That's the advice I give to anyone looking to buy. I didn't have much for a down payment at the time, so I got an FHA loan. I wish I would have known exactly how much mortgage insurance was going to cost me. It really adds up. It was like $80 more on each payment. In hindsight, I would have saved for another year and avoided watching all that money go down the drain. That I wouldn't be working for the same company 5 years later. One of the reasons we bought our first home was because it was close to work, but was a long drive to the other jobs I had later. That the 9-year-old next door liked heavy metal, and that he was going to get a guitar for his 10th birthday, and at 14 he'd be in a band that practices in his garage. But his dad drives a snowplow and I haven't touched a shovel 5 years. Sounds great, Tyler. You guys are really coming together. All great musicians had a neighbor who put up with them. Right before I put in an offer on my house, my best friend told me to ask the seller if they will leave the refrigerator, washer, and dryer. It never hurts to ask, he told me. That was over 10 years ago and I am still using the fridge, washer, and dryer that was left by the seller. All three are still running strong, knock on wood, and it really helped me out because at the time, I would have ended up buying really crappy appliances because I put all my money into the down payment. So like my buddy says, it never hurts to ask. I would have spent some time hanging out in the neighborhood to see what traffic, neighbors, and noise is like. We had some issues with the family across the street for a few years. Thought they were contractors working on that house when we bought ours, but turned out they lived there and they were bonkers. Whether or not the first floor had any insulation in the walls. Spoiler, it didn't. We just discovered this. It explains why our heating bills are so high. Don't be afraid to back out of a sale at any point. Yes, it's kind of crappy to the sellers and a little awkward. Losing the $1,000 or so you've spent on the inspection or appraisal can sting. None of that is as bad as being upside down on a house or feeling trapped in a house. If something feels off, it's okay to walk away. ETA. Be sure to check local laws. Looks like repercussions vary from state to state. I just did this. My peace of mind knowing I didn't just trap myself into a house that I would have hated was totally worth losing the earnest money. After my mom bought her townhome, I ventured into the crawl space to discover leaking hot water pipe had rusted through both top and bottom of underlying heater duct, the resulting moisture and heat making it desirable for the termite colony that had moved into the subfloor. This was just inside the crawl space access door in the garage, glaringly visible, but checked off on real estate inspection report. Always get a second inspection prior to closing. A house is all about angles. Some builders like softer rounded molding and corners, others are more sharp and flat. Why is this important? Well, cleaning, painting, hanging things, repair. Dust will sit on flat molding and it never seems to clean off. When fixing drywall, sometimes these angles matter. It seems like an odd thing to consider, but just look at that house and imagine painting it or cleaning it. Also, open floor plans are just that, open. If you have kids, you hear everything. If you have roommates, you hear everything. Watching the big game, someone washing dishes will interfere with that audio. Pros and cons of open floor plans. It's big, spacious and good for entertainment, and everyone can interact. To have an in general knowledge of what to look for when I walk through the house. There were a lot of small issues that gradually became bigger issues that I had to fix. Between all the personal stuff going on in my life and those issues, I'm almost caught up and I've owned the house for 2 years now. Leaking valves, wiring issues, evidence that the sewer line had tree roots growing in it, random janky fixes, etc. And the previous homeowner cleaned only where you can see and didn't clean to the same standard of me. A good example of this is he would, instead of sweeping stuff into a dustpan and throwing the contents away, he would sweep it all under the fridge. I literally had to take a giant flathead screwdriver to the tile and scrape everything off because the mess stuck to the ground due to spilled fluids. Also, it's a good idea to check outlets for proper wiring. Previous homeowner twisted copper and aluminum wires together, and in one outlet the wire wasn't long enough, so he used speaker wire to extend it. To have an in general knowledge of what to look for when I walk through the house. Yep, the issues we had in our first house actually made a huge difference in our process for buying our second. I went in every attic and crawl space, to the amusement of our realtor, in every house we viewed, one of which we nearly bought but pulled out of the contract after additional issues were found. That the down payment and mortgage is the cheap part, not the end goal. In an apartment, you generally never spend more than rent, utilities, etc. When owning a house, mortgage is the bare minimum and the sky is the limit. My favorite quote from the personal finance subreddit is, "Rent is the most you will ever pay for housing. A mortgage is the least." That shared driveways suck, particularly when the house next door is being rented out and the landlord lives in another state. Make sure to specify in your offer that the home be in move-in condition and what the penalties are if it's not. We were relocating to a new city hundreds of miles away and didn't get to do a final walkthrough until the day before closing. The previous owners had left all kinds of junk behind that we had to deal with. Not to mention the place was filthy. Since everything we owned was on the moving truck, which was arriving the next day, we felt like we had no options but to proceed to the closing and deal with it ourselves. I've since learned that if you've got a good realtor, get a good realtor. You can protect yourself from this situation. The contract can specify that if the house is not in move-in condition, the seller is responsible for 1. Temporary housing, 2. Storage fees for your furniture, etc. and 3. The cost of removing their crap and professionally cleaning the home. We were young, and dumb, but our realtor should have known enough to protect us from this situation. Did I mention find a good realtor? I wish I'd known how crappy HOAs are. Sometimes there's no avoiding them, but in our case we thought we were doing well cause the HOA was working on land grading when we originally viewed the house. Little did we know it would be an uphill battle to get necessary improvements to our house, like replacing the 13-year-old roof that we already had leaking problems with. We could have replaced it 3 years ago and had it paid for and not have to worry every time it rains. Go into the bathroom and turn on the shower and flush the toilet. Barely sufficient water pressure to pass a home inspection. Still kinda sucks in practice. The placement of the house on the property is very important. We bought a house on a corner lot. The house was not situated in the middle of the property, rather at the far back of the property. So we had the large property, which we wanted, but all of it was front yard, virtually no backyard. And you can't put a swimming pool, or trampoline, or swing set in the front yard. Not with that attitude, you can't. In many states, your monthly mortgage payment may also include home insurance, taxes, and if you couldn't fork over 20% in cash, mortgage insurance. So even though you think you're going to finance a house for $1,900 a month, be ready for the other costs as well. Also, buy some toiletries before you move in. There's nothing worse than being halfway through your ceremonial break in the plumbing business to find you've forgotten toilet paper. There's nothing worse than being halfway through your ceremonial break in the plumbing business to find you've forgotten toilet paper. This is why whenever I move out of an apartment I always leave a full roll behind for the incoming tenant. Kind of like a housewarming gift that is actually practical. The fact that most of the plumbing had been done amateurly by the previous owner. The bathroom sink leaked into the fuse box in the cellar, and the downstairs radiator doesn't work at all because the pipes were laid the wrong way around. Frankly, if they hadn't changed their phone numbers and conveniently forgotten to leave a forwarding address to the building's HOA, I'd have a mind to take them to court for misrepresenting the property. Never use the home inspector recommended by the sales agent. Also, that central ACs need to be replaced about every 15 years. We just replaced our 30-year-old central AC unit that was original to the home. It's been such an amazing improvement on cooling ability and electric usage. Cost us about $3,800. Final walkthrough. We had been in the house so many times that when it came to the final walkthrough we didn't feel it was necessary. Unfortunately, the previous owners bought a chihuahua sometime between after we made our offer and when they moved out. The entire first floor is hardwood, but the finished basement is fully carpeted and that's where they kept their puppy while packing and moving. We called our realtor and he talked with theirs, but in the end there was nothing we could do. We have to recarpet the entire basement. Something that hasn't been mentioned here but is very important, wall texture. Make sure you like it because if you don't, it's very expensive to change. We bought a house that was walls and ceilings skip trowel and crow's feet, neither of which we like. We got estimates to change to a flat, level 5 finish and the price was between $15K and $25K for our 2,600 square featuring home, depending on the contractor. We kept the textures. Word, we're just living with it. I honestly don't even notice it anymore. Our neighbors across the street decided to redo the walls on one floor only by themselves and it took months. But hey, at least they can coach us if we ever get that crazy. If you're buying a historic home, be prepared to deal with 100 plus years of mystifying decorating decisions. 120-year-old hardwood floors with 6 coats of paint on them, one of which is blood red, you bet. Gorgeous cabinetry with 6 coats of paint on them, one of which is blood red, of course. Wonderfully ornate window trim with 6 coats of paint, one of which is blood red, somehow, yes. Seriously, the interior of my house at one point was, floor to ceiling, blood red. How? Why? Who knows? Make sure there is an outlet in the bathroom. I didn't. Honestly, an electrician will run one for around $175 bucks if it really bothers you that much. When I was selling my first house, the buyer wanted a small amount of mildew removed from the crawl space. They initially wanted us to use a specific company that estimated the remediation to be about $1,500. Hired another mold remediation guide to come out and did the job for $500. The seller's mold people were not properly licensed and owned by the same parent company the inspector was owned by. No matter if buying or selling, always get a second opinion. One septic company quoted me $20K after pumping away the evidence, $650, and saying everything is fricked. The next cost $450 and an extra large supreme pizza to show me why everything is fine. There is a wooded area close to my house. Roaches live in wooded areas. Luckily it's as easy as spraying your yard house with your preferred insect repellent, but that first summer was uncomfortable. My grandma told me that many years ago they could look in their backyard at night and see the trees shivering full of roaches. Borax and roach traps fixed the problem. I would say, don't buy a home that was redone by a fixer-upper or DIY person. They all suck and none of them know what they're doing. Before buying a property, visit it on a weekday, weekend and also daytime, nighttime. What can seem idyllic on a Wednesday morning can be quite different on a Saturday night. Never ever buy the best house in a bad or rundown neighborhood. Any house built before 1990 has a good chance that it has asbestos somewhere in it. Make sure you test things before you renovate. Every freaking time, every freaking house, regardless of your local building ordinances. Source: guy who has a much higher chance of getting lung cancer. The 70s number I see thrown around was a ban on spray in asbestos products. A phase out of products that had baked in asbestos didn't take place until '89. Those products will very much ruin your day life if you tear them out, like say during a reno. Don't be stupid, take a small sample and get it tested at your local lab. Ouch, sorry to read that, but excellent advice. Don't make a huge mistake. Pay attention to the small stuff. Yes, like if a doorknob is too wiggly or a toilet seat is going to need to be replaced, but really you should worry about the huge stuff. You have to become a little bit obsessed with it. Walk across any floors that aren't on the ground and see if you feel like you're walking uphill or downhill. That's a problem, and it's shockingly easy to overlook if you're not paying attention. Inevitable buyer's remorse. You will wake up in the middle of the night wondering what the heck you just got yourself into. On the bright side, it's happened with every house I've moved into, and I've missed every home I've moved from. Don't buy more house than you need. I don't use my living room after cutting cable. I don't use my basement except for laundry. I don't use the second bedroom except for storage. Specific to my house, the prior homeowner moved the toilet and the bathroom to add more storage space. It's a long, thin bathroom and they put the toilet in front of the sink. They put in a super small toilet, and I assumed it was for the kids. I replaced it because it was weird sitting so low to the ground on it, and the valve that kept the water in the tank kept causing problems. Add $25 for each new replacement, and $75 for a new toilet. I eventually decided to buy a new toilet. Turns out it was a small toilet was because a full-size toilet makes you have to walk sideways sidestep to pass by. I'm probably going to have to install another small toilet to sell the house. When you buy a new home, they do a walkthrough at move-in. I wish I had recorded the walkthrough and my conversation with the developer, because they went over all the appliances and stuff in the house. They also told us what to look out for and keep an eye on, because there is a 6-month follow-up walkthrough. It was a lot of information to take in, and I sure don't remember most of what we discussed. I am worried I haven't taken the best care of my appliances, or that my sprinklers are too close to the house's foundation, and things that I wouldn't be worried about if I had just taken the time to take better notes or record the walkthrough. Second house. Don't buy a house that was smoked in unless you're prepared to gut it down to the studs and then some. That stink never truly goes away. Did you know that the word homeowner contains the word meow? I was not aware of that. I'll tell you the one thing I'm glad I did. I was looking at several houses, and I was just about ready to settle on a place with a hoa. I'm so glad I didn't. Roof quality is non-negotiable. Roof must be fixed. When was the last time the basement flooded? When was the last time the septic tank was drained? How is other major appliances connected in terms of breakers? When was the garage door serviced last? Are the pipes to the water heater bronze? How many people does the septic tank support? Are appliances included? Check every dang outlet for electricity. Is there asbestos anywhere in the house at all, including tiles, pipes, etc.? Just a few issues I had. 27yo first time homeowner. Learned a lot. Drive around the neighborhood around rush hour and see where the traffic flows. The street you're looking to buy on could be a popular pass-through. You'll also get a feel for the demographics of the neighborhood and your potential next door neighbors. You need a second bathroom. Doesn't have to have a shower, but you need a second bathroom. You can sponge bath or shower at the gym if something is wrong with your shower. You can't live in a house without a functioning toilet. One bathroom means you can't easily remodel, and you are sole if someone is sick or the toilet is broken. Get a house with a second bathroom. I've got Crohn's. 2 people in my house, but 3 toilets. Highly advised. Use a well-established, reputable company if you need improvements, repairs or maintenance. Never hire a handyman. I found that out the hard way when I got burned on a deck. Ask for their license number and cross-check it with your state's regulator. Half the time on shows like Homes on Homes or Catch a Contractor where they fix someone else's mess, the work was done by someone unlicensed or using another company's license. You have been spotted by the money pigeon. Comment gimme gimme and he will bless you with good fortune. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.